Hello, welcome to this Integrated Skills Christmas webinar. And the title of our webinar is All I Want for Christmas. We'll say a little bit more about that, but thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your company. We've got some great guests today, and let me just introduce you. We've got Professor Tim Cooper, who's Professor of Sustainable Design and Consumption at Nottingham Trent University. Hi, Tim.
Hi there.
We've got Rachel Barnes, founder of Barnes and Bins. It is a zero waste store in Hove, but it's not actually titled as a zero waste store, and we'll talk about more of that later. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
And we're joined by Simeon Walker, who's a pianist and composer. Those of you who were in on last year's Christmas webinar will recognise Simeon from last year's webinar. We got some really good responses, so we thought it would be great to have Simeon back and play some more beautiful piano music. So thanks very much for joining us. Thank you to you for actually signing up and joining us. A couple of apologies. Unfortunately, Dr. Adam Reed, who's president of CIWM, and Sarah Jane Widdowson have both sent their apologies. They've both got urgent appointments that they can't actually wrestle out of. So you have our panel in front of you, and I'm confident we're going to have a really good hour between us. So apologies to those of you who are specifically waiting to hear what those two speakers had to say. I'll be running through much of their content, so I won't do it justice, but you know, I'll do my best. So that's the welcomes done. Let me just go through a couple of bits of housekeeping. For those of you who've been on the webinars before, we have in the past, we've actually kept Q&A to the end, and I think, you know, practically speaking, leaving the Q&A to the end, A, you forget the question you had in your mind, and B, we'll run out of time at the end. So I think it's to all of our advantages. If you actually have a question, something you think of, actually just type it into the message box at the bottom, and we'll go through those. If we have the answer to those, we'll respond as we go through, or we might do it as a sort of bit more of a formal session, depending on how many questions we've got and how much time we've got available. Just a little bit of an integrated skills introduction. We have been running this webinar program now for 2 years, which is incredible. Where's 2 years gone? I think we've all got a 2-year gap in our diaries and calendars now, you know, due to COVID, but it has been going 2 years. And just for those of you who are kind of looking and thinking about what we might be talking about following this one, here's our program for 2022, and the orange webinar titles are actually our wider waste webinars, so they kind of replicate the theme and the feel of today's. We do an alternate technical route smart, and to our clients we have a sort of technical webinar 1 month, and then I do a wider waste brief the next month. So as you can see, we've got some really pretty interesting topics coming up. Improving service quality in February. We're looking in April at consistent collections. What does that actually mean, and how authorities are applying that? We'll have some guests on there who've actually started thinking about that and starting to generate some consistent collections of their neighbours. In June, we're looking at the impact of the extended producer responsibility and how are people responding to those requirements. In September, we turn our attentions to waste composition analysis, and particularly, you know, how authorities can use waste composition analysis to get a better understanding of what the public are actually doing. And our experience of waste composition over the last, you know, several years, has given us a really interesting sort of perspective on what the public think about the waste that they're putting out. In November, we're looking at Scotland's deposit return scheme, where the consultants supporting Circularity Scotland. So we'll be able to talk a little bit more about the deposit return scheme and how that's working. And then if you've got time in your diary next December, then, you know, you need to just make a space for the Christmas webinar for 2022. I know that's ranging a bit far, but I've put this in for no other reason that I just really like it. So this is Sarah Lazarovich. She's an artist, Canadian artist, and she borrowed this idea of the hierarchy of needs from Maslow and calls it the bierarchy of needs. That will be on the slides, and we'll be making all the slides available after the webinar. So I think most of the housekeeping there. There's one thing that we actually recognise that we don't have a theme tune so far, and I was hoping, Simeon, you might be able to do something playing on the theme of all I want for Christmas. I don't know if you've got any good ideas.
I can probably do that.
Oh, superb. Thank you. That was brilliant. Really good. Thank you. Thanks, Simeon. That was good fun. A quick review of integrated skills, what we've been up to this last year. ISL has gone celebrity this year. We have, as part of our contribution, if you call it a contribution to COP26, we were involved with Channel 4, and we were involved in the programme. I don't know if you caught it, but there was actually a programme on Channel 4 called Celebrity Trash Monsters. And 3 celebrities, as you can see there, John Barnes, Jodie Kidd and Kerry Katona. Actually, the premise of the programme was that they had to wear the waste that generated for 2 weeks. And so we went in there to do an initial waste analysis for each of them, went through each of their bins. We did a kind of halfway point to see if there'd been any improvement, and then looked again at the end to see how they'd finished up, and we kind of evaluated who had actually made the biggest impact on their carbon footprint. And anyway, I won't spoil it if you want to watch it, but there you are. That was good. So we've gone celebrity this year. Big news for integrated skills is that in February this year we actually became an employee-owned company. We're still working out what that involves, but it's exciting from our point of view, that we all staff will obviously have more responsibility, but from a client point of view, I guess we're hoping that people are going to find us more motivated, more innovative, and those kind of things. WCA projects, we've done quite a lot of waste composition analysis projects, but also we've been doing an awful lot of options modelling work with routes and routing, and authorities really starting to take seriously the government's resources strategy, and actually starting to map out and model what they would look like if they had, if they, I don't know, took food and delivered food waste in a different way, or if they were looking at, say, garden waste that they might now be charging if they distributed that out as a free service again, and many other kind of options that we're looking at, which is pretty exciting, and makes you realise actually that the government's resources strategy is actually really starting to have an impact, and people are starting to think about their responses to it. The next section here was Dr. Adam Reid was going to be presenting a piece of work that was part of his presidential address. And for those who don't know, Adam Reid is president of the Chartered Institute of Waste Management this year. And as part of that, he undertook, I think, what is a really radical project, which is to look at the skills, a skills audit of those people in the Chartered Institute of Waste Management, representing the waste industry, looking at skills they have, and then forecasting forward with members and other partner stakeholders. What do they think the needs and requirements will be in terms of skills for waste managers in the year 2030? So I was actually disappointed in a way that Adam, because I can't do this justice, but he was actually going to present this and present really, I suppose, set up the rest of the webinar today with Professor Tim Cooper and Rachel Barnes, in that a lot of the emphasis on the work they've been doing is actually the ability to collaborate, to partner up with academia, with private sector, to actually look at different ways of working. So let me I'm just going to flick through a few slides, but the title of the report was Skills for the Future, the Journey to 2030. a number of well-respected contributors there who actually authored the report. I was actually interviewed, if you wanted to read my thoughts on it. I've got a little quote in there, not that that's that important, but just to say I was involved in some way. The whole idea behind the report is this idea of by 2030, we'll have been going through this idea of the changes from recycling to resource economy. People involved in waste management started to think resource economy, what does that actually mean? And then the impact of circular economy, how does that actually change the way that waste management is provided? Is it still the same? Is it still the same discipline? I guess it's certainly not going to be. And then looking at the carbon economy, what does it mean actually when you put the carbon economy into the ways of current working? And the report concludes actually some sort of pretty radical things. The title of this page from the report, an irrelevant sector. The waste management industry faces the risk of becoming increasingly irrelevant to a greener UK as industry shrinks and waste becomes a distant memory. Be interesting, Tim, to get your thoughts later on about whether you actually expect waste to become a distant memory. It would be great if it did, but we'll talk about that later. The conclusion is we need to upskill our workforce, attract new talent, and collaborate with other sectors, academia, leading professional bodies, and drive an effective transition to a more circular economy. The report says we must lead this evolution and create a resources revolution, which sits at the heart of the green economic recovery. And the report really is about people who are currently involved in waste management, still being at the centre of this resources revolution. And one of the interesting things from the report is looking at the different sector skills that have been identified as skills that people within waste at the moment really need to actually grapple with and identify as gaps if they haven't got those kind of skills, to look at those skills and say, well, I need to get some of these skills. So data and information technology, that was one of the things I was actually pushing. People involved in waste management, for example, or resources management really need to grapple with map-based data and the benefits that kind of data can provide. Understanding the circular economy, reuse and repair, how does that actually fit with a waste management service, a waste management industry? Some of those soft skills, how getting on with people, sort of managing projects, systems thinking, what's your understanding of the way this is all working overall, the bigger picture? And then communications and behavior change. There's going to be a lot of need for those if the waste management industry is going to find its way through this, what is going to be a pretty significant change. That was, I think, one of Adam's final slides, but did you say landfill? The dinosaur is saying. So that's really, sorry, I didn't do that justice, I know, but Adam would have given it far more verve and vigour than I could give it. But it gives you a kind of flavour that this is an important transition that's coming up over the next 10 years. And things really do need to change. We need to collaborate. We need to start talking about things that are outside of direct waste provision and waste services, which really kind of, I suppose, leads me nicely onto the wider waste webinar subjects that we've been talking about over the last couple of years. We've been talking about the circular economy. What is it? We've been talking about how authorities can set up reuse centres within their household waste sites and those kind of topics. So on that point, I'm going to actually invite Simeon here just to play us a bit of Christmas music. Simeon, I think we're all going to mute and we're going to close our cameras at this point, but I wondered if you could play your first piece, which I think is going to be O Come Emmanuel. So let's get us in a Christmas mood.
That's right.
Thanks, Simeon. Simeon, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Really good. Thank you very much. Well, at this stage, I think it's time to introduce Professor Tim Cooper, Professor of Sustainable Design and Consumption at Nottingham Trent. A bit about yourself, Tim. After graduating from Bath University, you went into work as an economist in the construction industry, and then from there moved to the New Economics Foundation, where you undertook research into the lifespan of consumer durables, and it's kind of where you stayed.
I was in the construction industry for about 10-15 years, and then I worked at the New Economics Foundation, and we were looking at mapping out the energy and materials conservation territory. A lot of people at that time were doing work on recycling, and so we came across this idea, well, we need to go beyond recycling. So that's what sort of kicked me into my research career. And then I moved on from NEF to Nottingham University, where I was for 15 years, and then I've been in Nottingham Trent for just over 10.
Great. Can I just show this slide? This is the title sort of page from your report in 1994. I've just liked this because it's kind of got a little bit of patina on the, which just kind of shows a little bit about its age in 1994. But I've reread it, and I was just thinking how it feels to have kind of identified the need for things like circular economy back in 1994 and to identify lots of those sort of measures that really would make an awful lot of sense. Things like differential taxation on repair that some countries are doing, but I'm not quite sure where we're up to in Britain. But how does it feel to have written it 1994 and actually still see some of those things not yet implemented, some of them implemented?
Well, I look back on that and think it took a long time for things to get moving. The last sort of 5 years or so have seen quite a lot of change. So it's good to see the messages have got through. I won't say through that report, but by a lot of people just beavering on about the need to progress things faster. I mean, I think when you mentioned the circular economy, I thought, well, I did my degree in the 1970s, and at that time, I first came across the circular economy idea in 1960 from a report called The Economics of Spaceship Earth in 1966. So Ken Boulding, who wrote that paper, was probably thinking, if you ever saw my report, of 30 years and someone else's measuring years, and I'm thinking, well, 30 years and now John's measuring it. So we all play a little part in this.
Yeah, interesting. And then the next time first time we met, you were actually running a research network on product lifespans, and I was in local government, and you invited me. I think it was an open invitation to join a network, and I attended a few of the seminars at Sheffield Hallam when you were there, and I found that sort of a bit certainly eye-opening from my role as a sort of local authority waste manager, that actually there are people thinking much more broadly, and I particularly remember a session that I think you had kind of well-respected architect talking about what is the good life, and is the good life it's a good life sitting on a designer couch just flicking between the channels, ordering your food and watching TV, or is it actually doing something else? So really quite deep and profound questions. But could you say a little bit about what the research network was doing and what came of that?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to get a grant from one of the government's research councils. It enabled me to bring together people who were doing some thinking on product lifetimes, and they came from many different backgrounds, particularly from a design background and particularly from a waste background. That was the people who showed the most interest in the early work. Designers, because they tend to be creative and they're looking for new ideas and often environmentally minded, and waste professionals because they have to deal with the rubbish we create at the end of the day. So we had, I think, 6 or 8 seminars on a range of different themes, multidisciplinary. And actually, the outcome of that, a wee while later, was this. This was longer lasting products. And actually, that was my a book I wrote in 1990. I wrote part of it. I think I wrote about 6 or so of the chapters. There are about 15 or so altogether. The other ones were written by the people who came to the seminars and gave presentations. So that was very much at the time a kind of state of the art of this is what we know about how to make products last longer. It ranged from policy people to designers to waste people and so on, and showed the complexity of the waste problem as we saw it. When we knew at the time the waste reduction and reuse were the top of the waste hierarchy, and very few academics had done much work on it. So we wanted to put that into the public domain. And one of the things that's really exciting for me is the way that more and more academics are now working in this field. So we have a conference every 2 years called Plate, Lifetimes in the Environment. And the last one was, it was online actually this year. But we get about 200 people, about 130, 140 journal papers, academic papers are presented. And it just shows the growth of knowledge in the area, which we need, because the issues are not simplistic. It's not just a question of making things last longer. It's a question of trade-off sometimes between recyclability and durability. It's about the role of the business, the role of the consumer, the role of government. There are lots of things to think about and need to be explored.
Your interest is in lifetime of products. Am I being naive to assume that if you can double the lifetime of a product, you can effectively halve the amount of waste? Pretty
much so. I mean, it's a little bit crude, but yes.
Well, I did my best.
Obviously, the trade-offs come into it. So I will get people who come back to me with, if I say products will last longer, they say, well, what about things that become more energy efficient? Yeah, I'm driving a 11-year-old diesel car at the moment. Some people would say I should get rid of it and buy an electric one. So there are trade-offs, and obviously waste can be traded off against energy consumption and toxic materials. But broadly speaking, yes, if we consumed half as many goods, we'd reduce our waste by half.
Can I ask you a question that's been on my mind about sort of consumption, whether we are any worse consumers than historically? And I'd been to a couple of weeks ago. I did a kind of a blast from the past return to Jorvik Centre in York, and took my kids, who are now late 20s and early 30s, to go around the place that we'd been there 20 years previously. And I was struck by the conspicuous consumption of these Viking people who actually had shops with multiple different styles of comb and makeup and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, are we any different? I mean, is there anything that's novel about the way that we're consuming, Tim, that is different nowadays from historically speaking?
Well, I think it is the sheer scale, and whilst the Vikings may well have had a few different types of comb, I think today it is the extent of consumption and the sheer material throughput of the economy. I did some work a few years ago that was funded again by one of the research councils, a project called CMAP, and it was actually in an energy program, not a sustainability program. And the reason we got the funding was because the people who were doing the primary development of thinking in this area were saying that actually stuff consumes energy. And you often think of climate change being about turning the heating down or the lights off or flying less, but it's not. It's also about the sheer consumer amount of consumption that we have, most of the goods being consumed using fossil fuels. And I have to add, much of the calculation in terms of impacts being transferred overseas, because of course,
yes.
when people say our carbon impacts are going down in the UK, well, that's often because we're just shunting more the manufacturing overseas.
Yes.
The impacts are recorded from their figures rather than ours.
Interesting. I can't let the occasion go without mentioning and asking you a bit about planned obsolescence. It's obviously a big thing we're all kind of interested in and we all think is happening, but as someone who's researched this and on the inside, is it right? I mean, is there such a thing as planned obsolescence? Are companies planning a sort of lifespan, hoping that you'll buy a replacement?
Yeah, I mean, the term's been popularised for about 50 or so years, more than that, 70 years almost. And there's no doubt planned obsolescence occurs, but I think one has to really look at how it occurs and the extent of it and why it occurs. So, for example, it's not rocket science to be aware of knowing that designers design things to a specification. They're told this is the budget, this is what you can do, and if the budget is tight, they're going to try and cut corners. And if they cut corners, that might well curtail the lifespan of the product. So the basic principle is there that a lot of product life is deliberative. The manufacturers know roughly how long the product is likely to last. However, I think there has been a tendency in the discussion to home in on that word planned. And it's interesting that the European Commission now don't use that term. They use the term premature obsolescence. And the reason they do that is because they want to engage with industry. And they know that if they just say, oh, it's all your fault, industry, you're bad boys, and no one else's fault, industry won't play the same game as that. But an industry can come back immediately and say, well, look at all the products that are thrown away that are still working. You know, it's not just us who are causing the throwaway culture. Loads of items of furniture, of clothing, and so on are thrown away that are still functional. So it does happen, but it is something that happens because of the kind of values we have, because of the kind of business models companies work to, because of the culture, what we read, and the pressure for clothing and technology. I mean, some people in industry say to me, we'll make things longer lasting, but if the consumer doesn't change his or her values and keep things longer, all we'll be creating is really high quality waste, and that helps nobody.
Could you say something about the work you've done on labeling? I mean, it seems, I know you've been working at that for many years, actually really trying to steer industry and manufacturers in actually being more open and transparent about the environmental impact of what they're producing. Could you say something about that and how that's proceeding?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of product lifetime labeling was one I did mention in that 1994 report, but it is now on the agenda. It's been part of the European Commission's Action Plan for the Circular Economy, which came out in 2015. The French have already created a repairability label, which they now apply to 5 or maybe 6 products since the start of this year. Everyone expects there to be more labeling because we know that many consumers, they want to do the right thing, and they need help and support to know whether, if they're spending more money on something, are they just paying for the latest features, the color, the shape, the size, the brand name, or whatever, or is it the intrinsic functionality that they're paying extra for? And here we look at things like guarantees. It always amazes me how this so little differentiation between products by use of a guarantee. I remember going shopping with one of my daughters for a new watch for her, and the watch that was there for about £20, there's one for about £60. They both had a 1-year warranty. I thought to myself, well, they look fairly similar, what are you paying the extra £40 for? If you want to tempt me to buy the one that costs £40 more, give me a 5-year warranty, and I'll say, okay, yeah, that's a sign of its quality. If I know it's worth paying the extra. So we're doing a bit of work at Nottingham Trent on premium quality products. How can we encourage people to focus more on buying fewer but better quality products? So that's at the heart of this discussion. They're going to cost more to make, obviously, if they're better quality. So it's tempting the consumer to change their values slightly and move towards buying, as I say, longer lasting, better quality products, maybe fewer of them, but that would help the environment, and they ought to be better value for money.
Thanks, Tim. Your brief covers sustainable design, and there's obviously a key role in there for designing for longevity, but also designing for repair. I mean, have you got any good examples of things that you've been working on that shows how you can kind of use design for those to increase both the lifetime and the ability to repair stuff?
Well, a good example is the old mobile phone, because most of us own a mobile phone, and about 20% of us own a mobile phone with a crack in the screen. And the reason for that is because of the cost of repair. So my wife actually had a worse problem than that, actually a crack in the screen, but also that the screen froze. And she had to get it repaired, and she didn't see any change over £100. Now the phone cost her all of about 165, and it's about 3 or 4 years old now. So the question then is it worthwhile? And also, why did it cost so much? How can they get away with charging something that only took them a relatively short period of time? And the reason is that, well, the explanation for the problem is that kind of a problem could be solved through design. You can buy a fair phone at the moment, and it's designed to be broken up into parts. You can replace the parts yourself fairly easily. There are other products available too that do a similar thing, but not many. But how you design the product to start off with will influence its repairability and whether consumers think it's good value for money to get things repaired. I mean, there are lots of examples. The European Union is funding a whole project on land obsolescence and repairability as part of that, and they've exposed the way in which, for example, you have a washing machine. In the old days, if the bearings on a washing machine went, you'd replace the bearings. It would cost you I don't know how much, something between £50 and £120, I suspect, to do that kind of a job a few years ago. These days, it's all steel units. They have to replace the whole drum. So if your bearings go, the chances are you've got a washing machine that's not worth repairing anymore. There are other examples. I was looking at furniture and a paper I did for the Plate Conference last year. Standardised parts. If you make parts standardised, and often the parts that are proprietary are hidden. They're not different because they look good. They're different because basically the manufacturer doesn't really want people opening up their products and repairing them. If we move more to a system where there's an assumption by the manufacturer that the repairs built into the product, consumers will repair them, but they're designed to be durable and they're designed for easy repair, more repair would take place. But you need to do things like have standardized parts, use of screws rather than glue, so it's easy to unpick things. And a whole lot of other things, making sure that the parts that are more likely to be unreliable are easy to access. So one of the reasons why my last car was written off as unrepairable was because they basically had to take out the whole engine to get to the part that are broken. And you said, well, the car's worth $1,500 and the repair's going to cost you nearly $2,000. So do you want it done? So I know it's a design issue.
Yeah, interesting. Tim, thank you. Time has flown. Rachel, I wondered if you've got any questions for Tim, or a question for Tim. Anyone got a question for Tim in the participants list? We can hear you.
He can hear me. I mean, it's fascinating listening to that. Questions. If I think of anything, I might type in the message.
No, that's absolutely great. That's
I'll ask myself a question then. I look at your jumper, Rachel, and you're going to ask me how old's my eldest jumper, and I'll tell you it's 17 years old. And I know that because I went online the other day on Microsoft Photos, and they tell you the year of the photo, and I thought, I'm still wearing this jumper, and it's 17 years old.
Brilliant.
Very good.
Yeah, we're going to have the oldest item of clothing competition, I think.
Yeah.
That's the next Christmas. That's the next Christmas webinar challenge. Tim, thank you. Please stay with us, and we'll be chatting further in a bit. I've got a quiz question. So we did say that there would be some quiz questions. How this works is we have 3 questions, and you're not going to believe this, but we actually have 3 prizes. So there is a prize per question. How you respond is first person to actually answer the question correctly in the message box will win that prize. No, I'm just going to check. My presentation. Excuse me, everyone. Just a second to remind myself what the prize is, Rachel, because here we are. Rachel, would you like to describe that prize?
Okay. So the first prize, okay. So we have here some hand soap and a hand soap rest. The rest is made out of bamboo. And then we've got a pot scrubber, and it's made out of the fibre is, oh gosh, I've forgotten completely what the fibre is made out of, but the biodegradable sponges are made out of wood pulp. So once you've finished using them, you can literally snip that up into your compost if you have a compost.
Brilliant.
And then we've got some hand cream. So that's the first prize.
Fantastic, thank you. And the question for this, okay, this is myself, Andy Clues, who's my colleague who's listening in to the webinar here, and some of my other colleagues provided a waste management audit and measurement system for the Palestinian authorities in the West Bank. We stayed in a small, you have to listen to this story carefully because the clue's in the question. We stayed in a small town named Bet Jala, literally the meaning house of angels. So it was just on the outskirts of Bethlehem. So my question is, what is the literal meaning of Bethlehem? So that's the question. First person to type it into the message box will win that lovely prize. There are 2 answers. There's an answer in Arabic and there's an answer in Hebrew. So you can give me either. Either will win. Adam Keane. I think that's good enough for the prize. It actually means that Bethlehem is house of meat in Arabic. So congratulations, Mr. Keane. That prize will be winging its way to you. We'll speak to you later, get your address, and we'll get that off to you. Thank you very much. Rachel Barnes, thank you very much for joining us. I'm really pleased to speak to you. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while about your zero waste shop.
Yeah.
You have a zero waste shop, which is in Hove, and I've mistakenly said it was in Brighton before. So my apologies. I know it's a very sensitive issue.
We are Brighton and Hove City.
Right.
But yeah, and that's the on-running joke if you live in Hove, is that we're Hove actually, and then it became this very middle-class thing to say, I'm Hove actually.
All right. Okay.
So yes, Hove actually.
Hove actually, yes. Okay, that is great. Let me just find. You were going to talk us through a little bit about. I was going to ask you the question: how you started, why you started, why start a waste-free shop? What does it mean to be a waste-free shop?
I actually grew up in Greece as a child, and so very much instilled within me was a sense of, you go to the farmer's market and you got what was seasonally there, or you would, everything was very simple but really rich and enriching, and just to really, I don't think I really appreciated that until I moved back to the UK actually. So I met my husband out there and we moved back, and he works at Sussex University, and during that time I was having a bit of a crisis of sort of growing up as an English person living in Greece. People saw you as very English, and then coming back to England I felt quite foreign, and I didn't really understand what it meant to to live in to kind of grow up in England. So I spent a lot of time in different like human resources or the library asking for questions and things. So, but anyway, a long story short, I was very aware of a very consumer driven sort of way in which people were living, and trying to sort of figure out who I was in that place. I had a bit of a health scare when I first moved back to the UK, and for me that sort of triggered lots of thoughts around what I'm putting in my body, what I was using in my home, chemical products, things like that. So it started off kind of very much a personal experience, and then from there it became this overwhelming sense of this must be what everyone's doing in their homes, using the domestos, using the whatever cleaning products or shampoos that have chemicals in them. And so for me, that was kind of like the beginning of my journey, really. And I felt like, growing up in Greece, I was part of an intentional community. So much of that was around looking after one another in community. And so felt that, I really wanted to connect with my community in a way that I knew how. And so, it just became a bit of an idea, really, to set something up like a zero waste shop. Great. So I met my friend Sarah Binns, I'm the Barnes, Rachel Barnes. Sarah is the Binns.
Yes.
And together we kind of created this concept of, of the shop, the general store. So we wanted it to be more of a general store. We didn't want to focus so much on the zero waste because we felt that was quite a stumbling block for people when they come into zero waste shops. We didn't want to work with the colour green. We didn't want to work with having leaves on worlds on our branding. We really wanted to focus on, that idea of a general store has everything that you need, essentials. And, we really focused on not wanting to reduce people's experience, so that feeling of that we are reducing people's home life in terms of zero waste living, but enriching their lives by living zero waste. Lots of ideas sort of flowed and came from that. So
Rachel, I love that idea of it just being called a general store, because our hope is that all general stores are waste free. That's really nice. I like that. That's the kind of that's the direction you're heading in. I like it.
So we don't actually focus on food though. We focus mainly on homeware and body care and recycling. We actually have quite a lot of zero waste shops in Brighton. So we felt, and there's literally a zero waste shop just along the road that's very focused on food, and she's brilliant, and we work quite collaboratively together. So actually we really felt that we wanted to tap into people's lifestyles rather than, food industry was just something it's a, bit of a mind melt in terms of where you start and where you finish. So we really felt we had quite a lot more knowledge around home life and all the products that we bring into the shop and who we work with quite closely. So we do refills around anything from cleaning products to hand soaps, washing up liquids. We do rinse aid for dishwashers. We do shampoo, conditioner, body washes, body creams, things like that. Then alongside that, we sell products that have things like the sponges or washing up brushes or things like that have a good supply chain connection. So that have that link.
Okay, I'm looking at some of those products here on your slides. Do you want me to?
We can talk about Phil. I'd love to talk about Phil.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So Phil is our refill company that we work with. They're based in Northampton. And originally, when we first started up the refills, we were working with a lot of other refill shops, other brands. I won't name them. But we were getting big containers, big 5-litre containers, 20-litre containers, and we thought we were really sort of on it. Then we found out that these containers were just going straight to recycling. And we just felt that was kind of defeating the point of doing something that was a refill for people. And then we came across this company, Phil, and originally they worked with laundrettes. and the son set up this kind of side sister branch called Phil. So essentially what they do is they come to us with these big, large 200-litre containers with a nice big pump, so things get refilled rather quickly. And as they then it returns back to them, and they sterilize it, refill it, and then it goes back into their system. So so there's other brands, other companies that use Phil, and so everything again from all-purpose cleaners, kitchen cleaners, bathroom cleaners, rinse aids, washing up liquid, laundry liquid, fabric softener, hand wash. And then they provide glass bottles at 500-litre bottles. So people can initially purchase that for £5, and then they can come back and refill it for £2. So everything is essentially at 40p for 100 mils.
Okay.
So I really love their sort of ethos around closed loop economy. So that's when it doesn't necessarily, it just continues within the loop of using products. So
could you say something about Reworked?
So Reworked, we were opened up 6 months before the pandemic started, so that was quite that was quite a trial for us. The first few years of any business is about marketing, putting yourself out there, so we kind of we were hit hard in March last year. But I had been in contact with this company, Reworked. So they're based in Yorkshire. And essentially, the reason I got in contact with them is that they were collecting single-use face masks and then recycling them. So I wanted to hear a bit more about them. So essentially what they do is we have big bins in the shop. So we collect blister packs, we collect single-use face masks, we collect the lateral flow test that comes in the foil bag, and then we send it to them, and then they melt them into pellets and then turn them into these big sheets of plastic, which in the previous picture you'll see we've got an A board outside the shop, and that is made from Reworked. They made that for us. And so they want to work collectively with councils to make council bins, benches. They want to really connect. So they've worked recently with Children in Need to make sensory garden parks for children. They've got lots of great vision around that. And for us, we wanted to bring that in because we felt that was an immediate need, knowing that COVID was going to probably be here for the foreseeable future. So, yeah.
You mentioned about the detail about the shop, in that you've done some training recently. What's the training you've been doing? Just sounds interesting.
Remind me.
Is that going to confuse you? No, there's actually details of you doing some training in one of these slides.
Oh.
No, I thought you've been doing the sort of local sort of community collaboration type training, but.
Okay. Well, with Reworked, we're looking to. It's not training, but we're looking to work together with them to create a like an ecological eco week with schools, our local schools.
Okay.
So they're creating a blueprint with their local school so that they can then roll that out to other schools. So what we'd like to do is bring together different schools locally, do a collective waste collection. Also, just highlighting the damage of plastic use in our homes, and in just highlighting, and I think just visually getting good sort of idea as to I feel like sometimes you've got a lot of words and statistics and academic words that just doesn't quite meet the public day to day, and so one of the things I wanted to highlight was like, this is your plastic bottle and it can be created into this planter that is in your school playground. So yeah.
Can I ask you about your relationship with I don't want to ask specifically about your relationship with local authority. I want to ask the question, what can local authorities do to support waste-free shops? Because we've got a number of people on the webinar here from local authorities.
Yeah.
waste officers, what could they do to support what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I swing a lot between kind of very frustrated at what we do to quite hopeful to what we do. You know, just anyone who lives in our community, but you know, collectively. And what was interesting was in this autumn we had a bin strike in Brighton and Hove, and it was quite, you know, people were incredibly angry about it. But I think what highlighted for me, and people that would come into the shop to chat about it, was the amount of waste that people do create. So, you know, if anything, it just made people think about what they have and what they use and where it goes, and you know, who is collecting their waste. We do have a private company that we've been working with, a waste management company in Brighton and Hove for many years now. I think previous government had expanded the contract with them, so a lot of our waste can't be recycled here in Brighton. So actually, initially we were one of the first recycling councils, and now we're kind of probably one of the oldest who don't do so well. So you know, I think for customers that come in, they're just very frustrated, don't know really what to do, feel quite powerless. So I think, you know, when it comes to talking to the council, you know, I think there's a lot of people with great ideas about what we can do collectively as community, but it gets quite caught up in, you know, I guess the red tape of, you know, trying to figure it all out.
Okay, understand that. It's one of those new skills, and it's one of those kind of things that CIWM in that report are mapping out and saying, actually, we need to have these soft skills. We need to know what it is to set up a partnership with shops. We need to know what it is to collaborate with other bodies, with academics, and we need to be much better at that. Rachel, thank you very much for your time. It's been great having you on, and please stick around because we've got some more questions.
Okay.
Another question from you in a minute, but actually, I've got a quiz question. It's that time again. This Christmas song was voted number 13 in Britain's favourite Christmas songs. It's been covered by over 40 artists, including Iron Maiden, would you believe, and the Grimethorpe Colliery Band, and famously was not sung by Alan Jones in 1982 in the film in which it featured. What is the song? First person in the message box with the correct answer wins the lovely second prize, which is this.
Do you want me to explain what it is?
Yeah, please do. Oh,
So,
James Baker. We've got a winner. Okay. Yeah, please do.
So interestingly, Gomi is a Brighton-based brand. So Gomi recycled plastic soap dish. They're really great in that. So we have a cooperative here called Infinity Foods, and we work with them. And Infinity Foods have a lot of plastic waste through all of the sort of the film that wraps around packaging when it arrives, and then we get given that as well as a business. And Gomi collects all of our waste, and they mold it into these soap dishes. So that's what that is. They also make phone chargers and speakers. So really innovative, creative design company. So that's the soap dish. And then Alternative is a handmade soap company, which works with another cooperative called Suma, which is a northern-based cooperative. And then Loofah, which is probably one of the most sustainable body massagers that you can get. So
brilliant. James Baker is going to really enjoy that. I can
I hope so.
I can imagine it's going to be difficult getting him into work. I can see in the morning. Sorry, I was busy being sustainable this morning. I couldn't get out of that. Okay, it might be. Thanks, James. Yes, I might be late to work. I like that. What should we do next? Let's have another song. Simeon, are you okay to give us another song? I've actually heard Simeon in concert, and yeah, he's great. If anyone gets a chance to hear him or see him, but this is a song that I really like, and I've asked him to play, called Inside Out. Simeon, have you got anything you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, thanks. So this is a piece that I wrote earlier this year, and I guess it definitely kind of came out of this whole period that we've had. I guess the kind of the feeling of being inside and looking out and thinking what it must be like out there, but also it's kind of like a reflection really on the way that so many things, and I don't know, I wonder if there are any parallels with what you've been talking about and in your sector, this kind of reliance or need for so many people to almost to have to put your stake in the ground and say where you are on certain issues. So right or wrong, or belief in something or not, or left or right politically, or anti-vax or vaxxed, or all the Brexit, all these things where we've been so polarized, and so you're in this camp or in this camp, and it's more a reflection really on that sort of central space where most people are and where most things happen, but it feels like it's a confusing place to exist in. So so that's kind of where this piece goes. So here we go. Yeah.
That's lovely, Simeon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really nice. Simeon, while you're there, do you want to introduce have you got any prizes there to show, actually? Fantastic. Would you just describe them?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I've got 2 albums. Here's the classic musician's plug thing. Obviously, you can find all of my stuff on the internet, and with the big bad, potentially unsustainable music companies who don't pay musicians any money. That's the thing. But then also, I release music independently, so I'm big into physical products as well. And so I've got 2 albums. One's a solo piano album called Mono from 2017, and this one's an album called Winnow from last year. This one's got piano, string quartet, drums, and an instrument called the On Martineau, which is one of the earliest synthesizers, which sounds a little bit like a theremin. So, 2 albums.
Lovely, thank you. That's the prize. Thank you, Simeon.
Prize, yeah.
Rachel, I think you've got the question.
I do. Okay. 3.5 billion pounds will be spent this year on Christmas party clothes. How many party clothes will head to landfill after one wear? Is it A, 2 million? Is it B, 4 million? Or is it C, 8 million?
Any thoughts on that? No, I don't know the answer to this, so you're going to have to keep your eye on the
well,
on the
Thomas
message
Kelly has one. It is C. It is C. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good. Thomas, well done. That's the second year you've won a prize. Fantastic. Thank you. Tim, we have a question just before we go. Is it fair to say that businesses will have to change their business models in coming years to go more towards repair and servicing more than unit sales?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Inevitably, I think there'll be a. I was chatting with someone in the clothing industry a few weeks ago, and she was saying we need to maintain our profit, we need to maintain our revenue, but we want less stuff going through. So how can we do that? And I think that is what is facing companies in many different sectors. How can we get as much money, but at the same time do things in a different way? And the logic, if you're going to make things last, is, well, we need to find ways of making money through repairability, maybe by resale. We've got some shops, for example, sell their goods more than once. They made an item of clothing once, for example, and then they're offering it a second time to a second user. So they're getting as much money by selling the same item several times as they would do by selling several different types of clothing. So yeah, there are opportunities out there, but it's mighty slow at the moment. A bit of work going on circular business models and designing for longevity and so on, but we need more progress.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Tim. We're 3 minutes over, so if people can just bear with us, we've just got one more item which I wanted to ask the panel. Their Christmas wish list. This could be as frivolous or as life-changing as possible. So, Simeon, can I go to you first?
I'm just going to jump straight in there with something serious and full on. I just, at the moment, I'm supposed to be going to Portugal a week tomorrow to do a couple of shows over there. Hopefully, at the moment, still going, but kind of just hoping that we can kind of navigate through this and find a way to make stuff happen and get a booster. I'd really like a booster jab.
Yeah, great. Tim.
I've got my Christmas present already. They're these.
New glasses.
These are glasses made out of recycled fishermen's nets.
Like
ocean waste, and they're made by a company called C2C. See?
Great. I like it.
Okay. So when you need glasses,
nice.
you need some glasses at Christmas, go to C2C.
Fantastic. Thank you. Rachel.
Which one do you want? My personal or my big change?
Let's have the big one. Big change. Go on.
Let's have a big change. Oh, okay. I probably sound very naive and very simplistic, but I think we need to tax packaging, tax plastic. I think the long goal in the end will reduce massively our consumption. So yeah.
Yep.
And that, yeah.
Very good.
I mean, I could go on.
Yes. No, I'm sure. I think my final word is we've had quite a strange health year in our family this year. So my kind of big wish for this year is that we all adopt Robin Williams' philosophy, which is whenever you meet someone, you've got no idea of the battles that they're going through. So be kind. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. I've had great fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. And thanks very much to all my guests. It's been fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Simeon Walker, Professor Tim Cooper, and Rachel. Thank you so much, very much. Rachel from Barnes and Bins in Hove. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all your time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next year, if not before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Have a Christmas.